This is Land of Havilah, Daniel 4. From beginning to end, this chapter is a proclamation by Nebuchadnezzar concerning a wonder and sign he witnessed. He's not speaking of what he saw in chapters 2 and 3. He's speaking of another wonder he experienced. Verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king, to all the peoples, nations, and languages who dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked toward me. How great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. His dominion is from generation to generation. Comment in verses 1 to 3, Nebuchadnezzar sent out a proclamation notifying the public far and wide that God had shown him signs and wonders, but he's not speaking of anything we read about previously. He's speaking of another wonder connected to another dream he had. The proclamation runs the length of the chapter. He says he'll show the signs and wonders in verse 2, which means he'll give the details of them. The proclamation goes on, verse 4. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I made a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came in, and I told the dream before them, but they didn't make known to me its interpretation. Comment in verses 4 to 7, Nebuchadnezzar had a frightful and disturbing dream and consulted his enchanters, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. It's strange he bothered with them after his experience with them in chapter 2, and it's strange he told them the dream in verse 7 rather than making them tell him the dream like he did before. Anyway, his wise men didn't make known the interpretation in verse 7. Maybe they weren't able or maybe they weren't willing because the interpretation was embarrassing. Coming up, Daniel had the bravery to reveal it. The king goes on with his proclamation, verse 8. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. I told the dream before him, saying, Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret troubles you, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen and its interpretation. Thus were the visions of my head on my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the middle of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and was strong, and its height reached to the sky, and its height to the end of all the earth. The leaves of it were beautiful, and it had much fruit, and in it was food for all. The animals of the field had shade under it, and the birds of the sky lived in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. I saw in the visions of my head on my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from the sky. He cried aloud and said thus, Cut down the tree, and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the animals get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the sky. Let his portion be with the animals in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let an animal's heart be given to him. Then let 7 times pass over him. The sentence is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he will, and sets up over it the lowest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen, and you, Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation, because all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Comment in verse 8, Daniel came in. His name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of Nebuchadnezzar's god, that god being Bel, B-E-L. The name Belteshazzar for Daniel means Bel, protect the king. Of course, the Babylonians imposed that name in chapter 1, and 5 times in this book, Daniel calls himself I, Daniel, and never calls himself I, Belteshazzar. In verse 9, the king told Daniel, I'm asking you about this because the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret troubles you. This was an echo of what Daniel told him in chapter 2, that God is, quote, he who reveals secrets, end quote. In verses 10 to 17, Nebuchadnezzar told Daniel that as he lay on his bed, he dreamed of a great strong tree in the middle of the earth. The tree was so tall it could see to the end of the earth. It had beautiful leaves and fruit that fed all animals, birds, and flesh. It provided shade and shelter. Then a holy watcher descended from the sky, meaning some sort of holy being from above, who watched the earth. The holy watcher cried out, "Cut down the tree, cut off its branches, shake the leaves off, and scatter its fruit. Scatter the animals and birds from it, but leave the stump and roots, and protect it with a perimeter of iron and brass. Make it lowly amidst the grass. Let it be wet with the dew." Then switching to personal pronouns, the holy watcher said, "Assign his fate to be with the animals living off the grass of the earth. Remove from him the heart and mind of a man and replace it with the heart and mind of an animal. Let 7 years go by." This sentence is by the decree of the holy watchers, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives the kingdom to whomever he will and sets up over it the lowliest of men. Since the lowest of men, since the holy watcher said the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, we can be assured the watcher and the other watchers didn't issue this decree on their own, but that the Most High decreed it, and they were only carrying it out. As I said, the Most High was the ruler of men. Nebuchadnezzar went on, "I, Nebuchadnezzar, saw all this in my dream. Now, Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation. No one else has been able, but you can, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you." By the way, it's funny the watcher said the Most High sets up the lowest of men over kingdoms. Certainly, that's how the angels view men who are set over kingdoms, as the lowliest of men, the lowest of men, and many times we would agree with them. Now Nebuchadnezzar continues in his proclamation, verse 19. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was stricken mute for a while, and his thoughts troubled him. The king answered, "Belteshazzar, don't let the dream or the interpretation trouble you." Comment in verse 19, Daniel was struck mute, and the king knew why. He knew Daniel understood the interpretation but didn't want to give it. So he said, "Don't be troubled, Daniel, just give it to me straight." Still in verse 19. Belteshazzar answered, "My lord, may the dream be for those who hate you, and its interpretation to your adversaries. The tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached to the sky, and its sight to all the earth, whose leaves were beautiful and its fruit plentiful, and in it was food for all, under which the animals of the field lived, and on whose branches the birds of the sky had their habitation. It's you, O king, that have grown and become strong, for your greatness has grown and reaches to the sky, and your dominion to the end of the earth." Comment in verses 19 to 22, Daniel says the tree is Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's dominion reaches to the end of the earth, and his reign has been beneficial on the earth. Daniel goes on as Nebuchadnezzar tells it, verse 23. Whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from the sky, and saying, "Cut down the tree and destroy it, nevertheless leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of the sky. Let his portion be with the animals of the field, until 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and it's the decree of the Most High, which is come on my lord the king, that you shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass as oxen, and shall be wet with the dew of the sky, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he will. Whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be sure to you, after that you will have known that the heavens do rule. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable to you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if there may be a lengthening of your tranquility." Comment Daniel's interpretation in verses 23 to 27 is that by the decree of the Most High, Nebuchadnezzar will be mentally ill and homeless for 7 years. He'll eat grass and be exposed to the elements. The perimeter of brass and iron protecting the stump and roots means God will preserve Nebuchadnezzar and give him the kingdom again when he learns his lesson. The lesson will be that God rules over the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he wishes. It's related to the well-known verse, God's opposed to the proud but gives grace to the humble, James 4:6 and 1 Peter 5:5. In verse 27, in light of what's about to happen to Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel's counsel to him is to the effect, quote, break off your sins by doing righteousness, especially by showing mercy to the poor, and maybe God will grant you an extension of your well-being. All of it came to pass, as Nebuchadnezzar is about to say in his proclamation. Speaking of himself in the third person, he says, verse 28, all this came on the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he was walking in the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke and said, is not this great Babylon, which I have built for the royal dwelling place, by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, a voice came from the sky, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you. You shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass as oxen. 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he will. This was fulfilled the same hour on Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and ate grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the sky until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird's claws. Comment, as Nebuchadnezzar tells it in verses 28 to 33, everything happened the way Daniel said it would. 12 months after Daniel told him the interpretation, he was walking in the palace and said, isn't this a great palace and kingdom I've built for myself? It's a testament to my glory, power, and majesty. While he was still speaking, he heard a voice that said, the kingdom has departed from you. You'll go insane. You'll be unable to keep the company of man. You'll be homeless and exposed like an animal. You'll eat grass like an ox. 7 years will pass by until you know the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will. It was fulfilled the same hour, and with time his hair grew unkempt like eagle's feathers, and his nails grew unkempt like bird's claws. Coming up at the end of 7 years, Nebuchadnezzar lifted up his eyes to heaven and came to his senses. Verse 34. At the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and no one can stop his hand or ask him, what are you doing? At the same time my understanding returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and brightness returned to me. My counselors and my lords sought me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth and his ways justice, and those who walk in pride he is able to abase. Comment in verses 34 to 37, God restored Nebuchadnezzar's sanity. His counselors and lords began seeking him out. He was reestablished in his glory, majesty, reputation, and kingdom. It was a sign and wonder how low he went, and even more a sign how God preserved the kingdom in his absence and completely restored him. For all that, he sang the praises of the King of heaven, who is characterized by truth, justice, and his ability to humble anyone. His kingdom staying intact all that time probably had a lot to do with Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego managing it. Nebuchadnezzar's hard-learned lessons in verses 34 and 35 were that God's dominion is everlasting, his kingdom spans the generations, all the inhabitants of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does what he wants. No one above in heavens or below on the earth can stop him. No one can stand in his way, and no one can ask him, what are you doing? In other words, all complaints against him are null and void. That's the chapter, and as of verse 37, we say goodbye to Nebuchadnezzar. His name will only be mentioned 3 more times in the Bible, but only in memory, and all in chapter 5, which is next.